And what we're going to do is what we've done. Give them every piece of evidence we collect. Our cellular analysis systems are the best in the world, and that's what the FBI does, and that's what we flew in and did. That's how we led the manhunt and got him in 33 short hours. And I know this is frustrating to the public, and I understand it, but I'm not going to allow the Charlie Kirk prosecution to be dismantled because we want to get over our skis and publicize information. That is the one thing you cannot do. We will make everything public in court. It just takes time.
What if the truth wasn't lost, but simply locked away? That's the question haunting America tonight. The story of Charlie Kirk's assassination has become more than a murder investigation. It's a national reckoning over justice, transparency, and trust. And before we dive into how this case unraveled and what it reveals about power and accountability, make sure you subscribe for more investigations that go beyond the headlines. It began on what was supposed to be an ordinary night of debate and discussion. Charlie Kirk, the founder of Turning Point USA, was speaking at Utah Valley University on September 10, 2025, as part of his Prove Me Wrong campus tour. For years, his events had drawn passionate crowds, some supporters, some critics, but all there to engage in open dialogue. That night was no different, until it was. In the middle of a lively exchange, gunfire erupted. Panic swept through the auditorium. Security rushed the stage, students ducked for cover, and within seconds the atmosphere shifted from intellectual debate to chaos and terror. Outside, witnesses later reported seeing a lone figure fleeing from a nearby parking structure rooftop. Moments later, emergency sirens cut through the confusion. The manhunt had begun. By the following morning, the news of Charlie Kirk's death had spread across every major network, igniting grief and outrage across the nation. Political leaders, public figures, and ordinary citizens demanded swift justice. The FBI, under newly appointed Director Kash Patel, quickly took control of the investigation. Within hours, Patel went public, posting on social media that the suspect was already in custody. For a moment, it seemed justice had come almost instantly. But that relief was short-lived. Just hours after Patel's announcement, the FBI quietly corrected the record. The person detained was no longer in custody. He had been questioned and released. The correction sparked confusion, frustration, and disbelief. How could the agency responsible for the nation's most critical investigations get something so important so wrong? That early contradiction became the first crack in what would soon grow into a crisis of confidence. Critics accused the Bureau of acting recklessly. Others suggested Patel had spoken too soon, trying to calm a grieving nation before facts were confirmed. Inside the agency, anonymous sources reportedly expressed concern about leadership's handling of communications. And online, speculation exploded. Was there a cover-up? Had the wrong man been arrested? Or was this simply human error in the heat of an unfolding national tragedy? Days later, clarity began to emerge, though not without complications. The real suspect, identified as 22-year-old Tyler Robinson from Idaho, was captured after a relative recognized him from surveillance footage. Investigators say Robinson was quiet, isolated, and had dropped out of college months earlier. Evidence collected from the scene began to draw a clear line between him and the crime. A rifle found near the campus was wrapped in a towel. DNA testing linked that towel to Robinson. On the rooftop, where witnesses had seen the shooter, forensic teams recovered a screwdriver bearing his fingerprints. And in a remarkable twist, a burned piece of paper recovered from the area was partially reconstructed by FBI forensics. The note allegedly contained the chilling words, "Take out Charlie Kirk." But perhaps the most startling revelation came from Robinson's own digital trail. According to forensic experts, a message posted in a private Discord server the night before his arrest appeared to be a confession. "Hey guys," the message read, "I have bad news for you all. It was me at UVU yesterday. I'm sorry for all of this." The FBI has not publicly verified the message's authenticity, but if proven genuine, it could be one of the most direct admissions of guilt ever captured in a political crime investigation. As this evidence surfaced, Director Patel defended his approach to the case. He insisted that despite public confusion, the Bureau's focus was always on integrity, building a case that would withstand scrutiny in court, not just in headlines. "We're not going to allow this prosecution to be dismantled because we got ahead of ourselves," he told reporters. "Every piece of evidence will be made public in court." For Patel, speaking early was an act of transparency, not recklessness. He wanted to demonstrate openness and prevent speculation. But in practice, his early comments seemed to have the opposite effect. The public interpreted the retraction as incompetence, or worse, deceit. The backlash was swift. Lawmakers questioned the FBI's credibility. Analysts on cable news dissected every statement. Families of victims demanded answers. And amid the noise, Patel found himself summoned before the Senate Judiciary Committee to explain what had gone wrong. Under oath, he defended his choices, repeating that the investigation was thorough and deliberate, and that the truth would come out in full on October 30th, the scheduled court date for presenting evidence. Still, his words did little to calm the growing unease. As days turned into weeks, the silence that followed became deafening. Each time the FBI refused to comment further, speculation grew. Some called it a smart legal strategy, others called it stonewalling. Patel's critics argued that withholding information created the very vacuum conspiracy theories thrive in. On social media, false claims began spreading faster than official updates. Every rumor, every blurry photo, every anonymous post claiming inside information only deepened the sense that the full truth was being kept out of reach. Yet from inside the Bureau, a different perspective emerged. Investigators close to the case quietly explained that silence was often necessary. Prematurely releasing details could compromise witnesses, alert potential accomplices, or jeopardize evidence that was still being verified. Some reports suggested the FBI was monitoring several online groups tied to Robinson, possibly involving others who encouraged or funded extremist behavior. If that was true, the Bureau's discretion might have been not about hiding information, but about protecting an ongoing operation. That delicate balance between transparency and caution lies at the heart of the controversy. Patel entered office promising openness and accountability. He vowed that under his leadership, the FBI would no longer hide behind no comment when the public demanded answers. But this case showed how easily that ideal can collide with reality. By speaking too soon, he risked undermining his own credibility. By staying silent later, he risked eroding public trust even further. It was a no-win situation, a reminder that in the age of instant news, justice often moves slower than information does. The consequences of that dynamic have been far-reaching. Every conflicting headline, every half-answered question added to a growing sense that institutions once trusted to deliver truth are now struggling to keep up with the pace of public expectation. And in that struggle, facts can drown in noise. When officials hesitate to clarify, digital voices rush to fill the silence. Podcasts, YouTube videos, and social media threads begin shaping the story before the real story can be told. What starts as curiosity can quickly morph into chaos. That's why October 30th has become more than just a court date. It's a national moment of reckoning. Patel has promised that on that day, every piece of evidence will be made public: the forensic data, the digital footprints, the witness interviews, everything. It will be the first time the public sees the complete picture of what happened on that September evening and how the FBI pieced it together. For some, that day represents hope, a chance to restore faith in the justice system. For others, it's a test of whether the Bureau can truly live up to its promises. Lawmakers from both parties are watching closely. Behind closed doors, some have voiced concern that the Bureau's handling of the case may reveal deeper issues not of conspiracy, but of competence. Did Patel's leadership style, marked by aggressive communication and public engagement, help or hurt the investigation? Did his push for transparency backfire in the very moment it mattered most? These are questions not just about one man, but about the state of American law enforcement itself. Meanwhile, the human cost continues to ripple outward. Charlie Kirk's family remains largely silent, enduring their grief under the glare of a media circus. For them, every unanswered question, every new theory, isn't part of a political debate. It's another reminder of loss. Friends describe them as heartbroken but dignified, trusting that justice will prevail but yearning for closure. And that's what makes this story more than a headline. It's about the moral cost of silence. Because in the absence of clear communication, grief becomes public property, an open wound debated by strangers online. In today's world, stories don't just unfold, they explode. Within hours, a single event can ignite a digital wildfire that burns across every screen, reshaping facts before the truth has even had a chance to take form. And nowhere is that more evident than in this case. This case has exposed something deeper than a tragedy or a crime. It has revealed how fragile truth has become in the modern age. Within days of the shooting, the story had fractured into 1,000 competing narratives. On one side were those who accused the FBI of political motives, claiming the Bureau had turned from an agency of justice into a weapon of agenda. On the other, voices swore the entire event was fabricated, a staged performance designed to manipulate public emotion. Each claim gained traction, not because of verified evidence, but because of engagement, the currency of the internet age. Posts that stirred anger, shock, or fear spread faster than any official statement ever could. Screenshots, half-clipped videos, and ambiguous sources close to the case dominated the feeds. Influencers, hungry for clicks and attention, dissected every frame of footage, every leaked document, every rumor. They turned a tragedy into a battleground of speculation. In this chaotic space, the truth became the quietest voice in the room. Facts were drowned out by volume. Credibility was measured in followers, not in evidence. And when every opinion sounds like authority, truth becomes fragile. That's the reality investigators, journalists, and ordinary citizens are forced to confront now. Because when official silence meets public suspicion, misinformation thrives. It fills the vacuum, reshaping perception faster than facts can catch up. And once the seed of doubt is planted, it grows wild, often uncontrollable, often irreversible. By the time official reports are released, the public has already decided what they believe. And in this case, that belief has split the nation in half. Some see a clear-cut tragedy, one man dead, another accused, and an investigation still unfolding. Others see something darker, a manipulation of truth, a distortion of justice, and a system that cannot be trusted to tell the whole story. And that's what makes this story more than a criminal case. It's become a mirror, one reflecting who we are as a society, how we handle uncertainty, and whether we still have the patience to wait for truth in a world addicted to immediacy. The FBI, once seen as the ultimate symbol of federal authority and integrity, now stands at a crossroads. Every move it makes in this investigation is being dissected in real time. Every word of every statement is scrutinized, analyzed, and, often, twisted to fit an existing narrative. For decades, the FBI's badge represented something solid: justice, process, and evidence above emotion. But now, that foundation is being tested like never before. The credibility of one of America's most powerful institutions rests on what happens next. When the courtroom doors open on October 30th, it won't just be another trial, it will be a moment of reckoning. The Bureau won't only be presenting evidence against Tyler Robinson, the accused, it will, in a way, be presenting evidence of its own integrity. Every document, every testimony, every photograph that enters that courtroom will carry weight beyond the case itself. It will either rebuild or further fracture the fragile trust between the public and the institutions meant to serve them. If the FBI's case is clear, consistent, and complete, if it shows no signs of manipulation or selective omission, it could mark a turning point. A moment when truth reclaims its rightful place above rumor. A moment when facts finally speak louder than speculation. But if the evidence appears fragmented, if key details seem withheld or altered, or if the presentation feels evasive, then the silence of the past weeks will echo louder than any verdict. Because silence, in moments like this, can feel like betrayal. And once public trust breaks, it's almost impossible to rebuild. That's why this story has captured the nation's attention, not just for the crime itself, but for what it represents. In an age where people question everything, even the truth itself, Every new case becomes a referendum on trust. Can we still believe in the justice system? Can we still trust investigators to seek truth without bias? And can we, as a society, resist the pull of speculation long enough to let facts emerge? These are not small questions. They define how democracies survive or fall apart. Because in the end, this case isn't simply about guilt or innocence. It's about something far more fragile: faith. Faith that justice is still possible in a world where outrage spreads faster than truth. Faith that silence from officials means careful strategy, not calculated secrecy. Faith that systems built to protect the people still serve the people, not themselves. October 30th has become more than a trial date. It's a test of that faith. For the FBI, for the prosecutors, for Kash Patel, the witness whose testimony could shift the case entirely, and for every American watching from the sidelines, it represents a line in the sand. A line between transparency and doubt, between accountability and erosion, between a system that works and one that's losing its way. And perhaps that's the true heart of this story. Because justice, at its core, is built on belief. Without belief, laws are just words on paper. Courts are just buildings. And verdicts, no matter how carefully reasoned, carry no weight if no one trusts the people delivering them. Justice cannot survive without faith, and faith cannot survive without truth. Charlie Kirk's death was a tragedy. A man lost his life under circumstances still shrouded in confusion, investigation, and debate. But the aftermath, the way people have reacted, interpreted, and distorted the story, may ultimately define its legacy even more than the crime itself. Because what comes next will tell us who we've become. Will we be a nation that waits for truth, or one that settles for whatever version feels most convenient? Will we demand evidence, or amplify outrage? Will we restore trust, or continue to tear it apart with speculation? The answer won't be found in hashtags or headlines. It will be found in how we respond when the evidence finally comes to light. When the doors open on that courtroom and the FBI lays out its findings, the country will be watching, not just with curiosity, but with judgment. Every inconsistency will be magnified. Every missing piece will raise questions. Every sign of transparency will matter. Because this isn't just about one defendant. It's about whether the truth can still win in a world that profits from its distortion. If the facts stand strong, if the evidence holds up under scrutiny, it could begin to repair the fractures in public trust. It could show that, despite the noise of social media and the chaos of instant opinion, truth still matters. But if gaps remain, if explanations are murky or timelines don't align, the damage may go beyond this case. It could deepen the national skepticism that already shadows every institution, from law enforcement to journalism itself. That's the real weight of this moment. The FBI isn't just fighting for a conviction, it's fighting for credibility. Because in this digital age, every investigation is twofold: one in the courtroom and one online. And the second one, played out on millions of screens, is often the one that decides what people believe. In the court of public opinion, facts arrive too late. By the time verified reports surface, narratives have already hardened into belief systems. People choose sides, not based on what is proven, but on what feels true. And feelings once set rarely change. That's the power and the danger of our era. Social media gives everyone a voice, but it also blurs the line between informed analysis and wild speculation. It rewards speed over accuracy, outrage over understanding. And the more polarized we become, the more truth itself becomes a casualty. It's no longer enough for institutions to be transparent. They have to prove it constantly, visibly, and publicly. Because the default assumption today isn't trust, it's doubt. So when October 30th arrives and the evidence is finally shown, it won't just be about what happened. It'll be about whether America still believes that truth is worth waiting for. This story, in many ways, is America's reflection in real time. It's a test of whether institutions built on truth can still survive in a world ruled by reaction. Whether justice can outlast cynicism. Whether facts can find their way through the fog of noise and manipulation. Because the question isn't just who pulled the trigger, it's whether the institutions sworn to defend truth can still be trusted to tell it. And that's why this case matters. It's not about political lines or personal loyalties. It's about the foundation of trust that holds a nation together, the belief that truth, no matter how complicated, still matters. Charlie Kirk's death is a tragedy, but what follows may define more than his story. It may define the country's. So as we wait for the evidence, as we watch the arguments unfold, as every new document and statement is examined under the microscope of public doubt, we are also watching something bigger: the state of truth itself. Will it survive the noise? Or will we let it slip, piece by piece, beneath the surface of speculation? Because once truth loses its place, everything else, justice, accountability, democracy, begins to crumble. This case isn't just a mystery. It's a message, a warning, a test. When the evidence is finally revealed, when every hidden detail stands in the light, America will face its own reflection. And the image we see will depend on what we've chosen to believe along the way. Stay informed, stay curious. And if you believe truth should always be seen, subscribe for more investigations like this one.